Welcome back, everybody. So the sprockets have finally arrived. I've got the rear sprocket here, and I also have the new front sprocket. They came with the chain set, which I've bought for the bike as well. So that's ready to go. That will probably go on once I've painted the rear fender, I think. And I think I've got a few things to do before I can do that, because I kind of want to do all the paint at the same time, which means buying the new tank and prepping that for paint as well. So I think after I've got the sprocket on the back wheel, it's going to be a case of fitting a new tank, painting that up, painting everything else that's waiting for a base coat, which will be the the coolant overflow tank, the speedo case, the rear fender, and then mainly the rear fender, because that needs to go on before the back wheel can go on. So yeah, anyway, so I've had to file down some of the powder coat on these bits here, if you could see there, just because it was so thick I couldn't actually get this guy to fit properly. But now that I've filed it down a little bit, that seat's nice on there. So I'm just going to do a bit Loctite, get the nuts, and then find out the torque rating for these. I can't remember what it is, but I'll tell you once I found it out. And then get this thing permanently fixed on. So that's that guy on. So these had to be torqued up to 64 Newton meters. I did put a tiny bit of the Loctite in there. Doesn't really need it because these are prevailing torque nuts. So they lock themselves. Don't know if you can see that in there. They've got like those little locking tabs. They're not just normal stainless nuts. But anyway, 64 Newton meters for these. That is on there now. That's not going anywhere anytime soon. Yeah, so essentially that is the back wheel completely finished, ready to go on. I know I put it on the bike in one of the other videos. For me, it was the last video. I don't know which one it will be when it actually comes out, but I know I put it on there, but that was just more of a test to see. Something interesting I did find is I measured these forks, and I measured these forks, and these ones are significantly longer than those. These are like something like 96 centimeters or something like that, and these are nowhere near that. So I think at some point that these fork legs have actually been changed, which is why obviously the caps aren't right for this model of bike, and they've been made slightly longer. But I mean, I don't mind. They look pretty good. Anyway, off topic. So I am now going to refit the front sprocket, not this one, this is the old one, but I do need this plate and these little bolts. I need to tidy up in here, it's a right mess. So that plate, those bolts, that sprocket, that needs to go back on the engine down here because the other one didn't have enough teeth. So I'm going to find out the torque rating for those because I've forgotten it. I think it's like 23 newtons or something like that, but I'll figure it out. And then I will catch up back with you then. All right, that's that guy on there. So these are actually only 10 Newton meters, so it's always worth checking because a lot of the bolts on this bike are like 23 Newton meters, so I thought that's what these were, but they weren't. I mean, I was always going to check anyway, but it's always worth checking. Yeah, so this is on there now. That's locked on with that locking plate. I did put a little bit of thread locker on these, only a tiny bit. I mean, I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but I like to be more safe than sorry. Yeah, torque wrenches, if you're curious about those. I think I mentioned them before in one of my previous videos, but invest in a good set of torque wrenches if you're going to do any sort of work like this. They will save you a ton of headache, especially if you buy cheap ones. These are Teng tools. They're pretty good. They've been calibrated. They come with a certificate of conformance of how they've been calibrated. I've got two, so this one goes from 5 to 25 and this one goes to 40 to 210. So far, most of the bolts I've done up fall into those ranges. Obviously, if I go for anything that's sort of 25 to 30, you can push this one a little bit. It's just not calibrated for it, but you can push it a little bit further. So I've only really got, I would probably say, I don't know, 15 Newton meters of unusable torque that I couldn't do. So, but I mean, it's probably better to get a set of torque wrenches that actually overlap. So maybe if this one went to like, I don't know, 5 to 45, for example, or if this one went from 30 to 210 and that one went 25 to 30, you know, it might be better to do something like that. But yeah, these are invaluable for any sort of job like this. Yeah, so that's the rear sprocket on there. The front sprocket is on there. So they are pretty much good to go. Hey everyone, just wanted to give you an update on where I am with this build. So basically, I had a backlog of videos, probably about 8 weeks worth, before I actually started uploading them, because I knew this was going to be a long project, and I kind of wanted to keep the build rolling while I was sort of building it and uploading. So I tried to give myself a bit of a head start, but because of Christmas and everything, which by now was ages ago, but you've now caught up to my videos. So I'm going to try and keep these going on a sort of regular basis. I think mainly because I've been trying to do it once a week. I thought that would be enough time. But now, unfortunately, I've got to the stage where the last parts of the build are quite big, expensive bits. For example, I think the next thing I have to do for this is probably the wiring. Mainly because then I can get the motor started. Don't actually need the tank for the wiring, but I've got like a little external bottle tank that can go straight into the carbs. That's not a problem. Other factors, just like things that are taking time, like I noticed there was a tiny little patch of rust here, so I had to take all this back down to metal, reprime it, respray it, re-lacquer it, that sort of thing. That's why the seat's off. Yeah, just little things like that. Sort of eating up my time. Little other bits I've been doing, like I've got these water pipes on now. They're on there. That's all connected up, so the radiator can now get coolant in it and stuff. But yeah, pretty much it's just a case of doing the wiring, which I'm planning to fit one of the Motor Gadget units. Anybody who's looked at those will know they're not that cheap. And then I've got to buy a peanut tank for this one. I've also got to get the paint before I can fit parts like the Speedo cover, the rear mudguard, the coolant reservoir, stuff like that. And the paint scheme I want to use for this is like not a pearlescent, but it's like a hypershift sort of paint. So it's not the cheapest paint in the world. So these projects are going to be like maybe once a month sort of thing. But I mean, if I can find the money to be able to do them simultaneously, I'll try and do that. But pretty much as it stands, this is where we're at. So the wheels were on, obviously. This one is fully on now. Nothing left to do on this one. This one was where I left it in the last video with the new sprocket. But like I say, I've had to take that off again just because I need to fit this mudguard, which I can't do until I painted it. You know, just things like that. I've just got to find the right order to do things in now, because it's nice to see there's not that much left on the shelf. I bought the new sprockets and the chain, so that can go on. But again, I'm not going to put the chain on until the back wheel's on. Back wheel can't go on again till the mudguard's on. So there's not that much left to actually go on the bike. But I think the next step is probably the wiring, which I haven't done wiring before. But as I understand it, and videos I've watched with the Motor Gadget units, they're not that complicated. You just need a pretty basic understanding of how the wiring works. I do have a couple of wiring diagrams I can follow, so that's not too much of an issue. But even with the wiring, like, I still have to buy handlebars, and again, that's another thing I've got to buy. And then the switch gear for the handlebars, and you know, all that sort of stuff. So at the moment, it's just figuring out what I need to do next, what I need to buy next for that to then carry on, and finding the time, because I am not going to be able to work on this for the next couple of weeks, I don't think. I've got a few things on, unfortunately, so I'm not going to have the time to get in here and do anything major. So I'm hoping to either this month or next month buy all the kit for the wiring, so the Motor Gadget unit, the switch gear, maybe the handlebars, I'm not sure yet. What else do I need? All the crimping tools, the actual crimps themselves, the wiring loom, I guess, the harness, not the harness, but the wire to make up the harness. What else? What else comes with the wiring? You know, things like indicators and stuff like that, that, you know, you just don't really think about, because you think, oh yeah, I'll put that on at the end, but you actually need it now. I think I'm just going to put together a list of the parts I need to do that job, work out how much it's going to cost to get all that stuff, and figure out a timescale when I can do that in. But I just wanted to give you guys an update that the bike build hasn't stopped. I will keep going with this until it's done. I'm not just going to disappear with it and leave you hanging, because I want to get this finished as much as, well, probably more than you guys want to see it finished. But yeah, so just to give you an update on what's happening with it, and yeah, I'll get the next one up as soon as I've got all the bits and figured out what I'm doing with them. See you then.